Miracles 365 Awakening to Love. I'm your host, Tomas Garza, and it's Monday, and I hope that you all had a wonderful weekend and enjoyed yourselves, whatever you did, whether you had a relaxing weekend or whether you had a busy weekend, maybe with lots of parties. I don't know, maybe with just relaxation. I hope you had a great restorative time because that's the point. And welcome back. We are here going through the workbook for students in A Course in Miracles here on this live stream. And I've decided after a couple of months of doing the workbook for students that I'm going to change things up and do things just a little bit differently here on the live stream. So I know that people are joining from all different walks of life, which is the point, and welcome. It's beautiful. Whether you're practicing A Course in Miracles actively in your life, whether it's a part of your everyday spiritual practice or not, there's something to be gained here because we're talking about universal spirituality. So we've been going through the workbook for students, and my plan is on Mondays. So just on Monday, including right now, today, every week I'm going to have a special focus of the day where I will talk specifically about a theme from spirituality or a theme from daily life that we can apply spirituality to and use in the context of our practices to gain some insight into how we can continue to choose love, how we can continue to transform our situation moment to moment, which is where the action is. It's all about experience. So I am going to have a focus of the day. On Monday, it'll be a special focus. And today, as you see in the title, it's going to be mind training. Now, we will pick up from the workbook where we left off. Our last lesson was lesson 75 here in the workbook, and we'll start tomorrow again with lesson 76. We will continue in the workbook and we'll just keep going like that. Those ideas, by the way, if you're not familiar with them, are general spiritual principles that apply no matter what. They're universal, so no matter what your practice looks like or non-practice, maybe you're looking for something to practice, and that is very beautiful as well. So welcome to that category if that's you. Yeah, there's a lot there for everybody, and we'll continue starting with lesson 76 in the workbook tomorrow. I want to talk today about training the mind. And I will, by the way, for ACIM students, course students, I'm going to weave it in big time because it's directly relevant. So why are we talking about mind training? No, you may have a meditation practice, you may have a yoga practice, you may have some form of mindfulness practice that you resonate with, that you connect to, that you work on. And if you do, that's fantastic. That's kind of what I'm talking about here with mind training, because we see in A Course in Miracles that a workbook for students gives us things to do. It's a self-study curriculum, so it gives us things to do, to work on, and to apply to our lives. And that's the secret and the key to all of this, is making that decision to apply something. If you connect to it, apply it to your life and see what happens. And if you're skeptical, great, no problem. I welcome that, by the way. Apply it to your life and see what happens. That's why in the workbook for students in A Course in Miracles, it says we are not required to believe anything. We may actually feel some intense resistance to some of the ideas. That's great. It's all part of the process. And so if you are resistant to some of these ideas, wonderful. I say it's great. Good. Apply them anyway. That's what the workbook says. Do it anyway, because this is all about experience. If you simply are willing to take a look at an idea and practice it, see what happens. Do you feel differently? This is what we're doing with the workbook for students, is we're training our minds and we're opening up space. This is what mind training is. It's what meditation is. It is the opening up of space in our lives. So, what do I mean by that? Well, number one, I don't mean physical space, as in there's a distance calculated in kilometers or miles between me and you, watching possibly on the other side of the world in a different continent, totally different time zone, etc. Because we have 21st century technology and we're using it, which is beautiful. We're connecting to each other rapidly at high speed. That's wonderful. So I'm not talking about that kind of space. I'm talking about mental and emotional, psychological space. This is what we're opening up with the practice of spirituality, whether it's meditation or prayer, whether it's done individually or in a group, could be the workbook for students. Whatever that looks like for you, we're opening up mental, emotional, psychological space to do what? To make different decisions in life. We're opening it up so that when, not if, but when somebody says something or we read something in the news media and it triggers us right away, triggers anger or attachment, maybe aversion, and we get angry, we want to lash out and blame, call an entire group of people stupid. Yeah, if it's politics, that's a perfect example, right? It's a perfect example where family members are of opposing views a lot of times, and it's really tempting to trade barbs and to trade insults and demonize. And that is, quite frankly, what we're used to doing in the world. The spiritual practice opens up space so that we can choose differently. When we read something that we don't agree with and it triggers us, because it will, then what do? We have 100% control over what we do. We have total free will as to how we respond to stimuli and situations. Now, all too often, what we do is we act out of habit. Now, those habits might be beautiful, but all too often they're not. They're learned patterns of behavior that we've gotten from the world, that we've gotten from our parents, from school, from society, from our past relationships, from our experience in life. Through no fault of our own, this is the way the world operates. It's the way the ego operates. So we're conditioned to behave in a certain way. If we read a piece of news media that we disagree with vehemently, let's say, we're conditioned to respond the way that we do. And whether it's cursing under our breath or thinking a horrible thought about something or someone or an entire group of people, which may include some of our own family members. In my case, it does. Yeah. So, we were conditioned to behave in certain ways, and all too often, without that space, we'll fall into a regular pattern of behavior. We'll lash out, we'll blame, we'll say something to somebody. We will go around in a fog and in a state of, well, anger, rage, blame, frustration, which really inhibits our ability to be loving, doesn't it? Because love and that fear-based response can't exist at the same time. We're acting out our habitual tendencies. This is what I mean by mind training, to open up space so that we can behave differently, so that we can choose a different response. Even if it's to take a deep breath and walk away from a situation, that is far better than retaining your sense of righteous indignation and reaching out, lashing out, and getting angry. And that's just one example. And if you think about it, I mean, if you really examine your lives, which is what I encourage all of us to do, we'll see many, many, many examples of how we fall right into our conditioning. Yeah, I mean, it's not a trap in the sense of something that is deliberately out there hidden from us. It's a habitual tendency. First step is we become aware of it, and spiritual practice helps us to do that. helps to train our minds so that number one, we're aware of when we do this. And number two, we can create the space to make a different decision. So, what would that decision be? Well, I can't tell you what to do, right? We all have free will, but the choice that we have may seem like we have a million choices. There's one choice that we have, and it's between two options. One is love, the other is fear. Everything joyful, everything peaceful and tranquil and happy and loving and forgiving is a choice for love. And if, on the other hand, it's anxiety, blame, guilt, fear, anger, rage, depression, yeah, then that is a fear based choice. And it's one or the other. So, what we do with training our minds in spiritual practice is we open up space so that we may make a different decision. The more of a gap that exists between the stimulus, reading something nasty on social media that you totally disagree with, call it political, okay, for the sake of argument here, there's a stimulus there, triggers you. How much space do you create to react differently? Now, this can get really tricky, not just in social media, but when we're interacting with people one on one or on the phone or in person, and somebody does something or says something, sometimes they know that it's going to provoke a certain reaction in us. And what if we didn't react the same way? What if we had done enough work on ourselves that we opened up a gap so that we could react differently, more forgiving, more lovingly? Yeah. What then? What then? That's spiritual practice, and that's what we're at. And it is a constant effort, no doubt about it. Day in, day out. That's why everyone that talks about meditation and mindfulness and spiritual practice recommends that we stay persistent and diligent, because we have to retain vigilance over what's going on in our own minds. We can't control everything. What we can control is not exactly what comes up, because our conditioning comes up. It's how we deal with that, what we do moment to moment. That we can control. That's mind training. That's mind training. That is the exercises in the workbook for students. That's meditation, that's yoga, it's a walk in the woods or on the beach or whatever constitutes spiritual practice for you. Now, I have had a personal meditation practice for 35 years. I learned meditation when I was in high school, and it really, really has been something I've always enjoyed in my life. It really resonated with me, struck a deep internal chord, as in I've been doing this for many lifetimes, right? For sure. Otherwise, I wouldn't have resonated with it as a sophomore in high school. Because, I mean, think about it. As a sophomore in high school, people's minds are often on other things besides sitting meditation. Yeah. And my mind was on those too. I mean, don't get me wrong. But this was something that really has influenced my entire life. And I've become, in the last few years, a meditation instructor. One of the things that people often say to me is, I don't have time. I mean, have you ever said that to yourself? Well, I don't have time to meditate. Actually, you do. You really do, because a meditation practice does not have to be elaborate. It doesn't have to be 45 minutes long, and nothing against a meditation practice that is, nothing against a meditation practice with lots of music and chants and support. Those are very, very beautiful, and they're very useful. If you want to fit it into your life, maybe you don't have 45 minutes to just block out and meditate. What if you only have 45 seconds? You can still do a lot, a lot of beautiful, transformative work in less than 45 seconds. Well, how can you do that? A successful meditation can be as short as one breath. So ask yourself, do I have time for just one breath? I hope so. Right? I hope so. It can be very short. What happens if you're able to do that? Well, let's see. Well, I'm going to lead you in a quick, very quick meditation. So just make yourself, wherever you are, you can have your eyes open. I'm going to have my eyes open. You can close your eyes. Truth be told, I'm on video. So when I close my eyes to meditate, it's very interesting. I've been photographed and filmed in this state before, and it looks like my eyes are rolling up into my head. So they're only partly open, and it's a little weird. So I'll spare you that here and just do this with my eyes open. And what you do is just make yourself as comfortable as you can. You can do this seated at your desk. You can do this while you're doing the dishes. You can do it between tweets if you want to. And just breathe in, feel the breath expanding into your body. Feel your lungs expand and just notice it. And as you breathe out, notice the physical sensations of your chest cavity, your diaphragm, and the breath leaving your body. One breath. And if you pay attention to that, placing your awareness, your focus, if you will, on that one breath, that's a meditation. You could choose to continue to place your awareness on the next breath, and the next breath, and the next breath after that, as you wish, of course. So, see where I'm going with that. What are the benefits of even paying attention to one breath? It calms the body. The physical benefits of a meditation practice are well documented, and I'm not going to go through those here. Those can be easily accessed and looked up online. But a sense of calm, it's a very beautiful sense of calm that can come over you. And that is, in that calm, you can make those decisions. It's creating that space for yourself. It's training your mind to open up some space so that you can choose differently. That's mind training. And it's persistence. Yes, it's a series of fundamental, can be very small activities just like this. So, A Course in Miracles tells us that a tranquil mind is not a small gift. Think about that. A tranquil mind is not a small gift. Many of us in spiritual practice expect to be instantly enlightened. Many of us expect to have what we would consider out of body, metaphysical, or 5D experiences every time we sit down to meditate. And in fact, many of us are disappointed when that does not transpire. So it's not all about that. Spirituality is very much a moment to moment practice. And while those extra dimensional 5D experiences can and do happen and are quite wonderful when they do, that's not the whole point. The point is to enable ourselves to choose love, as often as we remember to do it. So, what happens when we're meditating and we find ourselves distracted, inevitably, as we always will, we just bring our attention back to the focus. In the case of that one breath meditation we just did, it's the breath. That's it. Bring your awareness back to the object of meditation. If you're following the workbook for students and you forget the day's idea, as I have probably dozens of times in my life, I've been through the workbook several times. Yeah, it's not all a perfect track record because life comes at us, doesn't it? I mean, yeah, no harm, no shame in that. You remember the day's idea when you can. If you're in a seated meditation or you're standing or you're practicing meditation and you get distracted, so what? Just return your awareness to the object of meditation. So if that's sound, if you're doing a guided meditation, just, yeah, return your awareness to the person, to the sound of the person leading the meditation. If it's music, return your awareness to the sound. If it's your breath, return your awareness to the breath. Takes practice, doesn't it? Well, you're not doing it wrong. Just you're sitting down and showing up to practice, whatever that looks like, is beautiful, and it's exactly what needs to be happening. So we're not doing it wrong. Nothing is ever lost in spirituality. And the benefits of mind training are that tranquil mind that is not a small gift, as A Course in Miracles tells us. All right, so let's see who's joining in here today. As always, I love to have this live stream be interactive. And hello, Andrea and Robert. Good day. How are you? Thank you guys for tuning in here. So again, on Mondays, what I'm going to do is cover a basic spiritual principle today. It's been mind training and the importance and the practice of training the mind for all kinds of benefits. And if you've been doing it for a while, then you'll know. And the funny part is they're not always immediately tangible, are they? It doesn't always immediately show up. So if you're wondering, is this working for me? How do you feel? Do you feel more joyful, loving, calm, tranquil, peaceful? And something that I've mentioned in the past week that I think is a really wonderful question to ask yourself is, okay, how am I different now versus when I began my practice? Over time, or let's say you've been doing something for 2 years. How am I different 2 years later? How am I different now than when I started? That can be a really, really good way to look back over a passage of time and see how much you've really changed and transformed yourself through your dedication to spiritual practice. And it really can be quite beautiful when you do it that way. This is very helpful, by the way, because it helps on those days when we want to say, oh my God, I'm doing it wrong and this isn't working, because that's going to come up. That voice of the ego is going to do anything to try to keep us from staying on the path. So, what are the benefits of staying on the path? Well, how different are you now as opposed to when you started? Yeah. And how do you feel when you do a short meditation? Yeah. How do you feel when you express thanks, when you're really grateful? How do you feel when you do something wonderful for somebody, really loving, a forgiving act, a kind act? Yeah. How do you feel? And switching pages over here. Well, hello, Cindy. All right, my wife, Cindy, guys, loves her meditation practice. And if she didn't do it daily, she'd really struggle with life. Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for joining and for the comment. I think a lot of people who have started a meditation practice and remain committed to it would feel that way. It certainly has transformed my life, no question about it. And whatever your practice looks like, whatever mind training practice you're in, it is a matter of opening up that space so that you can show up differently, so that you can be a different person. And that is what it's all about. Spirituality is not necessarily about having a tremendous out of body experience. Those can happen along the way. That can certainly happen along the way. But the point is for us to be able to choose love moment to moment. So there's a lot more moment to moment, day to day type activities that go on. And that's what opens us to the experience of knowing who we really are, which is where we're all headed. All right, everyone. So thank you so much. Tomorrow, we'll be delving right back into the workbook here in A Course in Miracles. We'll be on lesson 76. And by the way, if you're just joining me and you want to catch some back episodes, especially those that talk about the philosophy and the metaphysics of A Course in Miracles in more detail, check out Enlightened World Network's YouTube page. Their page has a playlist for every show, including this one. And if you scroll back far enough, the first 5 or 6 shows talk about foundational principles of the Course and the Course itself. So if you're new to it and curious about that, I would send you over there to check that out on Enlightened World Network's YouTube page. And thank you all for tuning in here today. This has been A Course in Miracles 365, Awakening to Love, and we'll be back with workbook lesson 76 tomorrow. All right. See y'all then.